Welcome, everyone, to the May You Already Own It Cloud Office Hours. I'm Ken Nubler, your host and one of the senior cloud strategists here at Planet Technologies. And today, we will have a session on mastering prompt engineering, keys to AI success as part of our ongoing Getting Started series for Copilot. In addition to our guest speaker joining me today, we have the whole cloud strategist team below, as well as our You Already Own It program lead, who consists of Casey Clayton, who's our program lead and a coordinator that works with us on all scheduling briefings, sending out our monthly newsletter, making sure our questions are submitted to the program are turned around within 24 hours. And lastly, your You Already Own It sponsor is Steve Winter, who's our executive vice president of business development and delivery. If you have questions today, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. And if you're not getting the newsletter or need to get onboarded to the program, please email us at youalreadyownit@go-planet.com. For more information about today's program and some of our past blogs and Cloud Office Hour recordings, be sure to check out the links in the newsletter. One last thing, we record all these sessions, so feel free to share them with your colleagues. With that said, just a quick warning, we are now going to start the recording. Welcome. Today we'll be discussing mastering prompt engineering, keys to AI success. We will discuss the art and science behind crafting effective prompts to guide AI responses, ensuring accuracy and relevance. We'll also show real-world examples of how nuanced prompt design leads to more efficient AI interactions. We hope by the end of the session, you'll become adept in the crucial skill of prompt engineering, essential for harnessing AI's power in your work. So with me today is Jen Mason, who's our visionary and vice president of workforce transformation and learning at Planet Technologies. Jen has been spearheading our training platform and our Evolve 365 team's efforts in revolutionizing organizational learning and user adoption. Her passion for digital transformation and efficiency shines through her work, empowering organizations of all kinds to embrace innovative changes with enthusiasm and expertise. Welcome back to the program, Jen. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Thanks, Ken.
All right. Before we get started, I'd love to do a quick poll and see what kind of customers we have with us today. So when you can, please submit your answers to the anonymous poll. We'd love to know what kind of organization you're working for. Thank you.
Sorry, real quick. I do apologize. We are having some technical difficulty with the polling.
Okay.
So that won't be popping up at the moment. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Casey. Okay, so let's get started and talk about the agenda. First, we'll start with prompting approaches, then prompting types. We'll get into some real-world prompt examples, then we'll get into some prompting personas and prompt components. Finally, we'll end with some examples and demos that show good, better, and best prompting. Have a quick discussion on why you need to train your organization will be saved for the end. So Jen, let's go ahead and get started. And can you tell us a little bit about what prompt engineering is and why it's important?
Yeah, so prompt engineering is going to be how you design and refine the questions you ask the large language models. So it's going to be a process that involves understanding what the AI can do and then how you want to guide it to get the best results. You're going to want to build different prompts based on what you're trying to do. And so prompt engineering is the concept of knowing when and how to build out prompts for working with AI tools.
Excellent, excellent. So let's get started and we'll start talking about approaches. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the approaches that you see that seem to work well?
Yeah, so there's so many different approaches to prompting. You go into it as I was building this presentation the first time I did it, there were just so many different ways that you could look at it. And so the one that we kind of highlighted here was how do I give the data to the AI model? So zero shot is going to be giving it without any examples. A one shot, maybe you're giving an example, say, give me this, format it like this, and attach a document for say. Few shot, maybe you're giving a couple examples. Chain of thought is you detail it in a thought by thought, process step by step. Iterative, which is where you keep refining it as you go. Negative, and then negative is telling it what not to do. Hybrid is going to be a combination of all. And then prompt chaining is when you do it in a chained response and you get the final pieces chained together. It's really interesting to look at how we go with this. I feel like this is a little bit like personalities, like, you take those tests and then you figure out what personality. I think everybody prompts a little bit differently naturally. I think if you look at this, it kind of shows how we naturally are talking, and they, you'll hear the phrase natural language a lot, but how do we naturally go about talking to people and asking for things? It's probably going to be very similar to how we go about doing this. I'm very much an iterative prompting person. I find that I'll give it a little bit, get an answer, then I keep refining it, then I keep going. And so I'm very much iterative. And so I've tried some of the other ones, but I really have to think differently if I'm going to try to do a different style of prompting. And so it's very interesting to me. And why this is important is because everyone is going to prompt a little bit differently. And as we're working with people, we want to think like they think. As you're thinking about training your users, or as you're thinking about how do I help people learn how to write the best prompts, you're going to want to look at how they may naturally do it. You're going to get different people that are going to even different roles that are maybe going to go towards one prompt over another. And so just kind of understanding that there's different approaches and it's not one size fits all. So I love it. Ken, how are you? How do you prompt?
No, I'm just like you. I would say I'm definitely iterative. I like to fine tune as I go along, but I use I'm a hybrid type of solution as well, where I kind of get the iterative, get the best of it I can find, and then kind of combine them together. And then I'll do like prompt training, I guess, at the end, and then run that through one more time and say, clean it up, So I use a couple different techniques, I guess, myself. I didn't know there was these different types, but it makes sense now that you're talking about it. And I think that's what today's program is all about, is let's talk about the best and most effective ways to prompt. And there's actually some ways to do it right. So let's keep going here. Thanks, Jen. So now that we understand the approaches to prompting, what are the different types of prompts people can use?
Yeah, so going into this, there's going to be all sorts of different things you're doing. Are you describing something to the AI and telling it to perform a specific task? So giving it instructions. Are you asking it for data? Are you asking it to explore a topic broadly? Conditional, are you telling it to make a decision? And Boolean, are you expecting a yes or no answer? All of these are valid ways that we might go about talking to the AI. And then the next slide takes us through even some more. We have a comparative where we're going to give it two scenarios. I know Tim is on this call, one of our OCM consultants, and he just did a very interesting thing where he did a comparison of two responses from different AI models and said, hey, tell me which one is better. Compare these two and tell me which one is better. And I thought that was really great, which is kind of a bit of the comparative and then the evaluate. So others in there, creative. So are you going to have it write you a story, write you a song, make you a presentation, different things like that. Seeking opinions based on that, or narrative. So a story. So all of these are different things that you can basically ask the large language model to do for you. So these are different ways that you can go about trying to pull data from and get different things.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was doing some of these things, I didn't even realize it, right? So like I just had a buddy of mine who I used to play hockey with, and he was also a golfer, and I said, give me a 30-second or so roast of this guy for his birthday, because I had to send a video message to his wife. Then they were collecting videos, and I thought it was just a great use. And I came up with some really funny things about hockey and golf and how he was as an individual. I gave some more details, but I won't say that on this call. But it was really hilarious what the roast came out to be. It was funny. So this is really opening up my eyes of some of the new ways to prompt. So let's talk about some like real world examples now, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you give it an article, summarize the main points. That's instructional. That's going to say, hey, I'm giving you instructions, go ahead and complete them. And I'm definitely not going to read through this entire table, but, conditional, if the interest rate is 5%, calculate the monthly mortgage payment for a $300,000 loan. What are the pros and cons of remote work? Narrative, that's describe a day in the life of a medieval blacksmith. So this is going to be different ways that you can do it. Ask it questions, which is larger, one or the other, and so it's just different ways. We don't really think about this a lot because it's just how we naturally talk, but going into it, the reason that this is so important and what we're going to get into next is this concept of these personas, because as you're going into these examples that you see, different people are going to naturally lean towards different types of prompts. And so, And so you have different personas. So what you want to do is try to understand these personas so that you can help them get the most out of these tools. And this is where you're going to get the biggest ROI, is by paying attention to these personas and then helping them do things better, more efficient, and with better data. So executive leadership, they're typically going to do comparative and evaluative. So just some examples of some of the things that they might look at is assess the ROI of our recent expansion. So maybe they're looking at data sources and saying, give me an assessment. Compare metrics between two different teams. Evaluate two different processes. Rank our top 3 revenue streams. So they're going to be looking at a lot of things where they're going to be comparing two things, they're evaluating things, and then they're using that information to make decisions. And so they're going to naturally talk to the language or talk in the language that's going to lend itself to those styles. Whereas you go into the next one, which is an HR manager, they're probably going to do things a little bit more exploratory or opinion based because they're assessing sentiment in people. They're maybe generating interview questions. They're analyzing data, but they're going to, identify patterns in things, develop a set of questions or materials, remark on the effectiveness of this new policy. And so they're going to be looking at things differently because their role is different, their approach is different, and their style is different. And so the same tools that you're going to give executive leadership won't necessarily be the same tools that you give HR or that you even give a customer service. Because you get into the customer service, they're typically going to be looking at, I need to resolve an issue. So we're going to do exploratory things or maybe even opinion based. They're going to ask a lot of questions sometimes. Can you tell me, how do I reset a password? How do I troubleshoot this issue? And then, give me information about this customer so they can get the information and then move on.
That's
and then
a
finally,
powerful persona. That is a powerful, I love that idea for customer reps. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, the marketing manager is going to be very creative and probably instructional. They're going to be, drafting an email for a marketing campaign or compare these two websites and tell me what's missing from website 1 or website 2. So there's a lot of things that they're going to be thinking about that just the nature of their role is more creative. The nature of the job, the things that they do day to day is different than what an executive is going to do. So they're going to think about things differently. They're going to approach things differently.
Makes sense.
And so they're going to also be doing different tasks, but not only are they going to be doing different tasks and needing to work with different tools, they're probably naturally going to be talking to the tools differently. And you'll start to see their inclination or the first thing that they do is going to be different than other types of roles. And the important part of this is none of this is right or wrong. It's just everybody's different. And that's what makes us so great as we work together every day anyway. There's so many different styles, so many different approaches. And AI is really this tool that can work and can adapt to all of the different styles and approaches. So they may end up getting, some of the same results, but go about it totally differently. And so the reason that you want to look at these different roles and understand them is because as, people in IT that we're setting up these solutions, we want to make sure that we're giving them the right tools. I don't want to go against the natural inclinations of a role or a persona to try to get them to use the tools. I want to lean into what they're doing and help drive their success with the tools. And I can do that by understanding them, understanding how they work, and then laying out the tools in a way that's going to help them really exceed at what they're already naturally doing.
Yeah, and I think one of the exciting things that I've seen here at Planet is people are starting to share these ideas, these prompting ideas to around the organization and saying, hey, I just did this and it worked really well. I know Tim, like you mentioned, Tim has done some really exciting stuff. So Tim, at the end, if we have time, I'd love to bring you on. I know I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't talk about this in advance, but I'd love for you to share some of your stuff if we have time at the end. So get ready to talk if you have a second there. All right, let's keep on moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that we got the basic of prompt engineering, how do we put it all together and make it work the way we want and it's intended to?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's going to be many different ways, again, that you can do this. There's probably a list as long as I am of the different things you can include to make a prompt perfect. But these are some of the main things that I work with that I try to build out in the prompts that I do. Persona is the idea that you can tell the AI how to act. So act like a middle school teacher and then do something. Act like a coach. A coach is going to talk different than a therapist, for instance, right? So you can tell it how you want to act. And then you can also tell it, I know audience is a little further down, you can also tell it who's the audience. So am I a middle school teacher that's talking to my students? Am I a middle school teacher that's talking to my parents? So it's going to take on a different tone and a different language when you're talking to the audience. So you can say how you want the AI to act, who you want them to provide things to, what you want them to do, being the task. So write an email, create this document, give me a table. And then the format, that's the table. Do I want it in a format? Do I want an essay, a list, a report? I was giving one earlier today when I was working in some Word, and I was like, give it to me in this format with these columns. And it took the data and took it from paragraph form and put it for me in 3 columns. And so it worked out great because I could tell it the format of what I was trying to do. And then the tone and style is going to be a little bit about how you want it to sound. Do you want it to be casual? Do you want it to be an executive briefing that, executives are going to read this, take this tone and style, very business, very formal? Do you want it to go to shareholders? So these are all of the things that you can build into the prompt to get the best results the fastest. So go ahead, Tim. I could see you were about to say something.
Tim or me, Ken?
Oh, Ken. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. So, it looks like there's, literally there's a formula to remember how to build prompts, right? It's persona plus task plus format plus audience plus tone, or as I like to remember it, PT fat. And so we'll talk at the end of the program about some of the ways to remember that, and we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. And you do not have to have all of these in every prompt that you do. I'd say, when I'm working on prompting, I definitely don't have all of them all the time. But if you want to get started and think about it, these are the things that you can put into the prompt that are going to help you get a better result. And so here's a couple of examples that we have. The first one is healthcare. So as a medical researcher, summarize the latest clinical trials on Alzheimer's disease treatments in a detailed report format for healthcare professionals. Use a formal and specific tone. So if I was to put this into Word, it would create a report for me. So a report format that would have a table of contents, that would have headers, that would have sections, and it's going to use a very formal and scientific tone. So it's probably going to use a lot of medical terms and be written to the audience that's going to read it. So healthcare professionals. So it's going to use probably some of that jargon. Whereas if I was writing this for students, there'd be a lot, probably less medical detail, but there's going to be assumptions on who knows what. And so by telling it the audience, you're going to help get to the end result faster. So this is a healthcare one, just an example that someone in that scenario might use. Okay. The next one is education. And so this, again, persona, as an educational technologist, design an interactive tutorial that will be presented in a series of web modules for high school students learning algebra. The style should be easy to understand and engaging. So this is great because you're kind of talking like a teacher. It's an online tutorial in separate modules, so it's going to be already separated for you and broken up. So you can kind of tell it the end result that you're looking for, which is going to help you get there faster. If you hadn't put that in there, you would probably get details that you don't need, and it wouldn't be set in the modules that you need. So by putting all of these details in here, you're going to drive the UI that you're using, the AI, you're going to drive it to go to the end result that you want much faster. And then our final example is a marketing example. And this one would be act like a brand manager. So that's going to be someone who manages a brand, and develop a comprehensive social media strategy plan to be delivered as a slideshow presentation aimed at young entrepreneurs interested in digital marketing. Utilize a creative and motivational tone. So this is going to be, again, a different thing. So we've gone through writing a report. We've gotten things with different modules and different sections. And then this one would be a presentation. So you really do have a lot of formats and a lot of options. Now, going through these examples, Obviously, we're talking a lot about Copilot, and I do have some examples from Copilot coming in the future, but this could really be used with any AI tool that you're using. The idea behind it isn't specific to Copilot. This is just a concept in prompting. It's also good to say that this is where we're at now. That doesn't mean that this is going to be where we're at in the future. Some of these things might change as the models keep maturing, as things keep moving forward in the technology. We might see some of these different where we don't maybe have to have all of these pieces. But you do see that right now, this is going to get us the best results the fastest.
Okay, now let's get in some other real examples and some demos.
Yeah, so this is where I think it gets really fun. What we did is we had the concept of good, better, and best. And so I took a different some different roles, and we have some different prompts for each one of those roles. And I'm going to show you what happens with one prompt, and then a little bit of a better prompt, and then an even better prompt. So go ahead and get us started on the first one, Ken. This is technology support. This is into Copilot. And so the first prompt we gave it is, how do I reset my M365 password? Okay, I get 4 steps here on how to set it. Oh, you're fine.
There you
Next,
go.
yeah, go ahead, Ken. Just
Okay.
for the next one, I said, what are the steps to reset a forgotten M365 password? I'm going to give 5 steps because I gave it a little bit more information. It's going to give me a little bit more information. It's also going to tell me to contact IT. They have the necessary permissions if I don't have it. But then finally, the last one that gets us even better results is provide a step-by-step guide for resetting a forgotten M365 password, including links to necessary resources and tips for creating a strong password. So you see here how this gets me the absolute best results of the 3 that I've done. I've got my step-by-step guide, which is 1 through 5, but then I've also got strong password considerations that you can look at and see, okay, this is great. Now, if I was the service desk and I was giving this information to a user, this you can see is the best results. I can copy this, share it directly with the user. Of course, you always validate and verify what steps they're telling you, but this is, you know, a good way to do it. So you could have even said, put it in an email format, different things like that. But you can kind of see as we're going along and as we're prompting, you're growing and getting better responses based on how you configure the prompt. This one is a city government and a public transportation office. This example is done in ChatGPT, so it's not done in Copilot, just done to show you that you can do them anywhere. The prompting can be customized really anywhere on any tool that you're using. But this one, the first prompt I had is, tell me about downtown public transportation options. Now, this is going to give me information that is general, right? Like what could be downtown. It's very broad. But as we know, every downtown is a little bit different. So the next prompt I gave it was, describe the public transportation options available in downtown St. Petersburg. We're going to get some different things here. And I can validate that this is correct. These are the public transportation options that we have downtown, but we have scooter rentals. We have bike sharing. Downtown Looper is a little like a car train thing. It's not a bus. It's not a car. I don't know what it is, but it's a thing that takes you downtown. It loops you through downtown. You pay a quarter, you get on. And then we have the buses that are running downtown. So this gives me specific information to an area. And so that's what I added to the prompt in that one. Now, the third prompt I did to make it even better is I outlined the public transportation options available in downtown St. Petersburg. And then I included schedules, cost, and accessibility information for disabled passengers.
Wow.
This is going to give me a ton of information, and also by the extra information it gives me, notice that it put it into like an outline format. So I've got the first, and then it does the same bullets under each one. Go ahead, Ken. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's powerful. That's really awesome. It's like everything you've always wanted Google to respond to you the way you wanted it, but you didn't have a way to do it, right?
Right, right. And so depending on what you were doing and what you were looking for, it's a good way to get information. I've also done things where I'll say, give me this information and then give me some sources with it. And then it will give me links out to other sources to go check information. So there's a lot, like as you're trying to pull information, imagine if you had a big report or something like that and you're trying to pull information from it, you can point it at that and say, hey, give me this information about that. Tell me about this. So a lot of really good details in there. The next one we have is a legal assistant. Now, this is drafting a contract. So this is just a sample. If I went into, again, this was Copilot inside of Word, and I said, hey, create a contract for me. It's going to pull together 3 pages of the most common things that we're going to see in a contract. But if I want to get even closer, the next prompt I can give it is draft a basic employment contract. And it's, creating a template for me. And it's giving me more sections now, you see. And it's giving me sections that are relevant to an employee contract. So I got a little bit farther. I gave it more detail. So it's giving me more information that's probably also closer to what I'm looking for. And then you can see how it holds blanks in it for like the employee name and for the company name and different things like that. So employee name, date, you have all those things you have to fill in. So the final one, I put together, generate a detailed employment contract for Planet Technologies, including clauses on confidentiality, compensation, terminations, and then tailor it to a tech company. Now you see we have a whole extra page in the document now. And then we've got sections around confidentiality, non-compete, performance reviews, different things like that are now in there. And I don't have a spot that says customer anymore. It put all of those where it had customer, or I'm sorry, where it had the company name, it put in now Planet Technologies Inc. And so I would now, of course, you're going to need to read through this and then update it to get the right information. But this is going to give you the starting point and the template to get started. And so this could be something that could be very common for people as they're generating new content so that you don't have to start from zero. You're able to get a jump start on the things that you're trying to do and really save a lot of time.
Excellent.
And then I think finally, the last one that we have is going to be inside of PowerPoint. So this is a sales manager preparing a pitch. So make a sales pitch presentation. It's going to, again, come together and pull out what does it think is the most common things that you're going to have in a sales presentation. So slides on your approach, different things like that. And then a better option would be design a presentation for a software sales pitch product. And so this is going to give you some slides and some sections that are very structured on how you can sell a product. And then finally, a sales pitch of our new CRM software that highlights key features, competitive advantages, and customer testimonials. So it's going to pull together and give us a longer presentation with slides that are already highlighting those things that we wanted to talk through. Now, PowerPoint is going to be using their design module. This is always the funniest one because if you've seen Microsoft do a demo of PowerPoint, they get the most beautiful PowerPoint presentations I have ever seen. And then you go do it inside of PowerPoint and it leaves a little to be desired. But I think as features and functionalities come out, the two will merge and we'll be able to create very compelling PowerPoint presentations from Copilot.
Excellent, excellent. So now by now you're seeing there's a method to get the results you're looking for when prompting. Jen, tell us some more about how to train your organization.
Yeah, well, when you're going in to train your organization, of course, the first things you want to think about is you want to have your plan for governance. You want to know what's going on with AI, what information and direction do you need to send your users in for things, what is the appropriate use in your organization. But then once you kind of get past all of that, you really want to understand your audience. So if I'm going to be training HR versus if I'm going to be training my executives, I probably want to take a different approach. I might want to focus on different things and I want to help them see how the tool can be used for them. But I really need to do it based on them. So I need to understand, how are they probably naturally going to prompt? What things are they most likely to do? How are they going to probably naturally talk to the model, so that I can then lean into that and help them build out prompts that are going to guide them. If I understand that I've got different people in the audience, I can't really build a training where one size fits all. I need to flex and mold to best reach my audience. And then I want to work with them to show them the importance of being specific. So hopefully you saw when we did the good, better, best, how just a few simple words could change up the prompt, or change up the results you get from the prompt. And so we want to show them that and help highlight that, but we want to show them in real world examples. We probably want to work with them to learn what are the most common activities that they're doing, and then help them apply some good prompting examples to those, so that they can really improve the speed at which they get work done, the quality of work that they're able to put out. Contextual awareness, we want to make sure that they know how to create specific prompts and give it context. We want to encourage them to keep learning, because this is all changing. This is all going to change rather quickly. It's going to be probably the fastest that we've ever seen. And then we want to promote ethical prompting. Make sure that they understand where they're supposed to be prompting, what they're supposed to be doing with the data that they have, and that they're able to make those wise decisions, which a lot of that goes back into your governance plan and how you want them to work with your data. So those are some of the things that you really want to think about when it comes into how you build out your plan and how you train your organization.
Excellent, Jen. Thank you for those. So as Jen mentioned on the previous slide, training plays a critical role for the launch of any new service, and specifically users play a crucial role in the success of any launch of a service, as well as the administrators of that service. Training for Copilot is going to be needed, especially due to the large investment your organization has made in licensing. Things you might want to consider for successful Copilot rollout are readiness assessments, scenario-based training, setting up a center of excellence to share experiences and gain feedback on the service as they're being offered, especially building a champions program based on personas for sharing experiences and best practices. And then finally, the key to remember here is these capabilities are always changing. So ongoing training is going to be needed. And this is not just a one-time done in one effort. One of the things we've learned in the past from rolling out new programs coupled with our experiences with testing Copilot is we've learned that tailoring training for individual personas in your organization ultimately drives a higher level of adoption. With that said, we have invested a persona-based training platform for Copilot inside our Evolve platform. So if you're one of our customers today and you're interested in learning more about persona-based training, please reach out to your account executive or learning strategist for more information. At this point, we've got plenty of time for questions. I don't know if Tim's still around or if he wants to chime in, or questions from the audience. We'd love to hear some of the things you all have been working on. Tim, come on off mute, and I've got a question for you. If you can come off mute. Maybe I need to unmute you. Hold on.
I'd like to hear from Tim how he approaches and
Yeah,
what style he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
there you are, Tim. So I have one question for you specifically. I saw you post something on LinkedIn the other day about how you made an interactive prompt. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Which one?
I don't know. You post so many things, or if you can't, if not that one, any of the other really interesting prompts you've been coming up with, or some of the things you've been working on there.
Yeah. So I think you had mentioned earlier, and what I'll do is I'll just post the graphic of what I put in the chat. And this was a very long prompt. It was creating a summary. It was creating a survey with branching. It was creating a discussion guide. So it was a very involved prompt. And that's one of what I call like a go big prompt, right? I iterated that prompt over and over and over again, as Jen was saying, in order to get the prompt right. Then I was ready to start the work. And I ran it through 3 models. I ran it through GPT-4o, Claude, and Copilot for 365. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. It did really well. But then I wanted to see how they would do judging themselves. So I combined all 3 outputs into a completely new chain of thought. and then asked it to grade the output of all three. And surprisingly, Copilot was nice and humble and said, it would depend on your use case. But GPT-4 and Claude both said the evaluation was that Copilot had done it best.
Interesting. Any other things you'd want to share about some of the work you've been doing with prompting at all? Or
I mean, it is as you get more and more involved with it, you can really make it dance. But that's down the road. Just to get started, I highly recommend don't boil the ocean. Pick an analogy, right? Boil the ocean, chop the forest, whatever it is. Break it down to the very specific task you're on. It doesn't need to be the entire presentation. It might just be the 1 or 2 slides that you're working on around a concept. Have a conversation with Copilot around that and allow that to help you. Then move on to the next thing. And so you don't have to have it give you the entire presentation. You can give it just little sections and make each little part better. And then the sum of all of the outputs is better than it would be without it.
That's really good advice, Tim. That's a lot of how I'll work with things as well. I don't often go in, especially if I'm working on a new document or even a presentation. I don't go in and have it give me the whole shell. I might go into the Copilot app and have it help me do an outline or something like that. But when I'm working on it, I typically go piece by piece. I find I can work better that way. So that's great advice.
Yeah, and I love the different styles. Having it generate in different styles. And again, I'll share another one that I was just playing with working on an announcement. And all that I changed was give me the announcement in the style of Kara Swisher, in the style of Jay Baer, in the style of Simon Sinek. And of course, as a Swiftie, I had to add in the style of Taylor Swift. So, it did a great job. It generated the announcement in those 4 styles. And then I just said, combine them into one. And it's that back to that iterative approach of a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of refinement. Okay, now let's get to work.
All right. Any other questions? I know we have a couple questions in the audience that came in on chat or through the Q&A. I'm going to get to that in a second. Any other comments, Tim, before you're done? Okay.
Yep.
So there was a question. I'll throw it out to anybody, whether you're on the team here or even with Planet Technologies. But one of the questions that came in from Robert was, how does data that is unique to the organization get loaded to the AI you are using? Do you need your own LLM? One of your examples mentions sales data. So obviously Office 365, if you're using Microsoft 365, a Copilot for Microsoft 365, it's honed in on the data that's in your Office 365 tenant. So for that the answer is very easy. For data that's outside of that, then you'd have to look at really containerizing that data and pointing the search engine or the LLM towards that data that is contained there, right? So things like OpenAI and that kind of thing in Azure. So I hope that answers your question. For any data that's in Office 365, it's very simple. It's already inside your tenant, and any data that's in your tenant is fair game for Copilot to find, as long as it's not being bypassed by the search index. Again, that goes back to governance and how you set up your governance controls and your security of your data governance and that kind of thing. But typically, if you're using Microsoft 365, and your sales data was in there, then obviously it would be fair game for Copilot to use if you had access to it. That's the most important thing, is if you have access to it, then you'd be able to see that data. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, one thing, Ken, I'll add to that is, if you're talking, I know your question is more general, but if you were talking specifically sales data and you had Dynamics 365, there is Sales Copilot. Yeah. It does very basic things, but it can be extended to do more specific things. So that is something to look at. Again, its functionality today is fairly basic, but it can be extended with some development, or you could, as Ken mentioned, point your LLM at that data source as well.
Thanks, Steve. I totally didn't even think about it. Yeah, I got to think about all the different co-pilots out there. And I know we've been starting to play around with Dynamics for Sales too. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Dr. Mike, you had a question. Are you saying about how do you keep up to date with all the stuff that's going on with the co-pilot
No,
roadmap? What's the
Ken,
question there, Jen?
I think he's asking, can you ask Copilot to say, go read these documents
Oh, yeah.
and then help me frame a request? And so right now inside of Word, you can do attachments that are either Word documents or PowerPoints, and you can do up to 3 on a request. You can kind of do the same thing inside of PowerPoint, but it's limited to 1 document where you can say, hey, take this document, take this Word document and make a presentation for me. I know that there's things on the roadmap to expand that. And then there's also ways to try to make them all. One of the fun things that we get here is there's Copilot everywhere. However, it's not always the same teams building the features, so the co-pilots don't all act the same. So there are efforts to kind of bring them all up so they act the same and it's the same experience across all of them, and you can do some of the same things. So I think that's the direction we're going to see going forward in the future, Dr. Mike. And if I understood it wrong, let me know, but I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah, and if Dr. Mike's on and I don't know if you saw the question from Thomas Brewster, that would be great to answer. If not, we can take that offline, obviously, about the GCC high compliant environments, because that's a pretty broad question that probably desires a longer answer there.
I'm not seeing the answer. I'm not seeing the question right now.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Oh, there it is.
It's in the Q&A section, yeah. Where does LLM governance fall within FedRAMP GCC high compliant environments? Do you have any specific guidance for those?
So as of last week, I think I was tracking that Copilot doesn't yet exist in the GCC high environment or in the Azure government space. That truth may have changed since last week.
Or GCC, for that matter, yeah.
Or GCC.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not out. This Demetrius, it's not out, and it won't. It's targeted for late summer, early fall. So I expect that a number of additional items around governance and differences between commercial and government and the GCC environment will come out then.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Demetrius. There. And GCC high may even be a little bit longer than just GCC, so we'll have to see where that goes. But the earliest it would be is the fall. You know, that's kind of what we're hearing. Any other questions? These are great. Go back to the other. Okay, looks like Tim's posted another image there of some of the work. All right, so if there are no other questions, I'm not sure, Casey, are the polls working still or not? That you have the polls been able to get up or not?
They are. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, if you can launch this poll on where do you see Copilot M365 in your set of priorities for this year, we'd love to just hear. This is all anonymous, so feel free to go ahead and put your answer there. And as I mentioned, I was trying to find an easy way to remember, you know, what Jen was teaching us about, you know, the formula for creating a prompt. So I said, you know, I just goofing around. I asked Copilot, as an average person, give me a way to remember the letters PTFAT, which would be persona plus task plus format plus audience plus tone. And of course, Copilot gave me the answer with nice little icons. Pizza toppings flying around town, penguins taking fancy Arctic tours, and party time, forget all the troubles. And then it even went so far as saying, you know, for the first item, imagine pizzas loaded with toppings soaring through the sky, dodging traffic lights and zipping past skyscrapers. Pretty funny stuff. So yeah, looks like we're getting some answers here. We thank you for taking these polls. I just wanted to put a little bit of lightness on this, so appreciate that. So we hope that this provided a lot of information for you today. We'd love to know how we did. Did the information presented today help you in more effective prompting in the future? So please, from a level from 1 to 5, please let us know how we did today. We'd really appreciate the feedback. Just to remind folks that we hold Cloud Office Hours the 4th Thursday of every month at 1 o'clock. Please make sure you save the date for June 27th. That's our next session coming up. And of course, if there's a topic that you want us to discuss in the future, send us a message to YouAlreadyOwnIt at go-planet.com or contact your account executive or cloud strategist. This is just a reminder of all the You Already Own It benefits sessions that you have available to you just for the asking. So please reach out to that You Already Own It at go-planet.com email if at any time you want one of these sessions available to you. These are all free and personal one-on-one sessions with you. At Planet, we want to be your pilot for Copilot. So if you have any questions, please reach out to your account executive or cloud strategist. And if you're ready to take the next step and want to talk readiness training or Copilot, we're here for you as a Microsoft Jumpstart partner for Copilot or as a Microsoft AI partner. As always, we've included some helpful links for you for further review. And as we wrap up, let's review what we heard today, which is prompt engineering is the practice of designing and refining the inputs given to an artificial intelligence system to elicit the most accurate and relevant output. This process involves understanding the AI's capabilities and limitations, as well as the context in which it operates, to formulate queries that guide the AI towards desired responsive. Think of prompting as a formula to get the best results that you want to achieve. And finally, training. You need to educate your users to prompt correctly and efficiently. Well, that's a wrap. We hope to see you next June on the 27th. Thank you for joining us. From all of us here at Planet Technologies, we hope you have a fun and safe Memorial Day. Take care.